Greetings, my friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm so thrilled to be back here with you today. I'm so excited. So many great things have been taking place. I just want to wish you the best. I hope that you had a wonderful week. I hope you're getting things done. Hope new doors are opening for you. Hope you're able to accomplish all those goals, make wonderful connections, and also remembering your work-life balance. So with that said, I want to make some announcements for you guys. First things first, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on the X Factor EDU network, which is hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph, and it can be found also on Spotify. Now, if you've not checked those podcasts out with Dr. Matthew Joseph, you are missing out big time. Go check out the X Factor EDU network and see the plethora of podcasts that are on the show, on the network over there. All right. Also, just wanted to remind you guys to follow me on social media when you get a chance. My Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube channel is India White 123. TikTok is Dr. India White. And so with that said, I also wanted to remind you guys of my new mini workshop, a Grit mini workshop that has launched on the Grassroots Workshops website. That platform has a plethora of workshops from different topics, not just grit, but it has equitable practices, culturally responsive learning, all different things. ELL learners, go check it out when you get a chance. And thank you, Robert, for that opportunity. I also wanted to make some announcements regarding just some upcoming events. Of course, I like to keep you guys in the loop, and hopefully I'll be able to see you guys. Now, I just got done hanging out with y'all in Minnesota. Love you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you for the opportunity. My next conference is going to be Wisconsin Math Conference in May. So I'm super excited about that. I'll be a keynote for that. And then Camped Conference in July, I will be a featured / keynote for the Camped Conference as well. So please, please, please link up with me. Give me an inbox, DM me. Let me know how things are going. And we will continue moving forward that way. I also wanted to talk about, we're all just aspiring to just move forward. There's new doors opening for us as we continue to, just develop and do what we're supposed to do as leaders. And so with that said, I do want to say thank you to Savas Learning for the opportunity to join your team as an author, for all of those that have followed me, that have been a part of some of the work. I have been honored to be an author for several wonderful organizations. And so I am super happy to start this new path as an author with Savas Learning. And thank you for the tribe for always being so supportive and just always being right there for me. Please make sure that you're following me for the latest news, the latest opportunities. I would love to work with any of you. Now, with that said, I want to transition us into the show. This is really neat because I have someone among us that is the real deal who has really soared. And she has just, not only has she been soaring, she's been making a difference. She's been paying it forward, and she is worthy to be celebrated. And so with that said, I want to bring onto the show today an expert in her own right, someone that is making a difference. She is an entrepreneur. She is gritty. She understands equitable practices. She understands how to serve everyone in her space. And so with that said, I'm now going to bring up for you guys the amazing entrepreneur, Dr. Sade Adu. Welcome to the Grit and Equity Talks podcast.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, it is an honor. Thank you for being on the platform. So, Dr. Sade, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself as we get started.
Hey, beautiful people. My name is Dr. Sade Adu. I am a digital brand strategist, a speaker, and an author. And my goal is to help women entrepreneurs monetize their expertise. Because on my side of the internet, we believe that you should teach what you know and get paid well for it.
Ooh, I like that. Now, that's very interesting because this particular platform, I'm dealing with educators. And so the first thing I think of is many educators don't really see, I guess, themselves as being entrepreneurs. Can you maybe talk with us about, maybe a transition? Because I know your educational background. I've read it. You are amazing. And how were you able to go from getting a doctorate or PhD in curriculum and instruction from the University of Wisconsin to now being this rock star entrepreneur? Talk to us about it.
So the beautiful thing is, almost 10 years ago, I started my business in the Republic of Kazakhstan, where I was doing international education, and I thought that that was going to be my thing. I was going to be I was going to be a teacher, but I really thought it was going to be, if I go back even further, in my middle school in my hometown of Irvington, New Jersey. But how life was set up and opportunities was set up, I ended up teaching 5,000 miles away in the Republic of Kazakhstan. There I was training teachers. I was recruiting more diverse talent. I was developing curriculum in my early 20s. And these are opportunities that, when I reflect back on them, I never would have had as a new teacher, a novice teacher in the United States. But because we were developing schools, developing policy, developing curriculum internationally, they leaned on us to figure it out. And we were building that plane as we were flying. And by the time that I left Kazakhstan, there were schools around the country that were based in our school program or school, I was an entity. And there were people who looked like me at every single school, because that was part of it too. I was the first one of color, first Black person hired, and the youngest hired by my company at the time of me being hired. And I had to make sure that I was not the last. So that part was very important too.
So I want to kind of go there with you. First off, I commend you highly for that, for being the first and for just paving the way. This makes me think about equity, and we've talked about equity, diversity, and inclusion just kind of in general. Equity is defined as having resources and accommodations provided to students or leaders as needed to promote access and attainment for learners. So when I think of EDI, I think of equity, and I think of having diversity, that element in the education space. Can you talk to us about the difference that was able to make for students that you worked with and for leaders that you worked with in your space when you were there?
So starting my educational career, I student taught prior to going to Kazakhstan in Philadelphia. And I was at one of the most diverse schools in the country. There was over 4,000 students. They spoke about 40 different languages. Nice. So even my student teaching experience was diverse. You know, at the parent teacher nights, we had interpreters in different languages, in Hmong, in Spanish, French, Russian, because the students were so diverse and the parents were too. And it catapulted me in this diverse setting, because my background, my schooling background, I lived in a Black city, predominantly Black teachers. Everything was Black.
Interesting.
I went to an HBCU. Then my student teacher experience is entirely a different experience than when I grew up in New Jersey. I was at one of the most diverse schools. I taught white students, Asian students, Black students, immigrants, refugees, ESL. I had the whole gamut, students with IEPs. So this was me in my 2021 coming into the academic arena with a myriad of different diverse experiences. And having over 100 students as a student teacher, and then going to Kazakhstan. So it was already implanted in me that we want to honor diverse experiences. That was already something in me. And even going to Kazakhstan, yes, they may not look like me, but we got to honor their history, their stories, their struggles and challenges, because they may not have had the same oppressors that I had in the United States, but they also did have experiences. And that was, the conflicts between Kazakh people and Russian people. So me being an educator, me being somebody who advocates for equitable solutions for people, it was important for me to understand the people that I teach. And one of the things, my master's degree is from the University of Pennsylvania, and one of my professors always said is, you teach who's in the room. So if we're going to teach who's in the room, that means what I already got prepared might not work.
Right.
We need to understand the people in the room. So that's, if we're speaking to educators, we're speaking to students. Teach who's in the room.
Wow. So my question with that is, how were you able to then incorporate maybe cultural responsive teaching or cultural relevance, where you were like, okay, I see in my room, for instance, I have this particular, demographic or these students with this particular language. What were some strategies that you used for the educators and leaders that are listening here that helped you to be effective as an educator?
So I had to immerse myself in their culture.
Oh, wow.
We
Okay.
had to, so in Kazakhstan, we advocated. I was the only Black educator that went from the United States, and I had about 4 or 5 other colleagues. They were white, and we advocated for, you got to teach us Kazakh. We need to learn Russian. Like, we're here, and I understand you want to learn from us, but we need to be able to navigate what's going on. We wanted to learn the culture. We had to start eating the food. Their national dish is
Wow.
horse meat, bish barmak, 5 fingers. That's what it means. Guess what? Because if we're going to eat dinner with grandma, she's going to offer me some bish barmak, and I can't say no. So
Wow.
immersing yourself in the culture, not being like a culture vulture, not not wearing it as a prop, but understanding their history. So we
Yes.
had to understand how they became an independent nation. They were a young nation in the 1990s. They became a
Wow.
country. So we had to learn this stuff. And then we also had to check our American privilege. Because listen, I'm a Black girl from America. I don't got that many privileges. But when I'm somewhere else, I got certain privileges that come with a US passport. And I had to check
Wow.
that thing and check myself. So it was very important. Just like I would advocate for teachers when I've done teacher training in the United States, getting my PhD in Wisconsin, having these conversations with predominantly white educators about what it looks like to be in a diverse classroom. You got to get to know your students. The same thing that I would say to them is the same thing that I said to myself. I got to get to know my kids. What are they doing after school? What are the things that they care about? What are the music that they're listening to? And what can I learn from them? And not coming in thinking I know
Wow.
everything.
Wow. So
That was super important.
what do you do about pushback? So what if somebody's like, I just don't think it takes all that. I'm not really interested in their culture or, maybe equitable stuff and diversity. Like, what do you do, in the face of pushback? How are you able to continue to move forward if you had that experience?
So the beautiful thing about the experience that we had, we advocated. So, this was maybe a semi-utopia as I look back. We advocated for our salaries as a collective, that we got paid the same. We advocated for equitable housing. We advocated for so many things that we knew this was stuff we couldn't get away with in the United States as novice teachers. So
Wow.
when we went in there, we were like, this is what we want. This is how we want it to look. This is what you got to give us. This is how much money we want to make. Everybody needs to be making the same amount of money. When we got a raise, everybody got a raise. We came in like, it has to be equitable. Now the challenge was we had to also navigate what the local teachers were doing, because it wasn't as equitable, because we, as coming from international, we had more expenses. So there were definitely some challenges there. But we were advocates. And because the school that I started with was new, like that was the first year the school was being created. So everything was ground floor, policies, curriculum, what we're gonna teach, what are the focus, like they were really leaning in on us. It was an IB school. And we were building the plane as we were flying. So that was the beautiful thing. It wasn't already established. Now the school I went to after that was more established, but the first school I started with, they didn't know what they were doing. We didn't know what we were doing. So we figured it out together. And that's the thing a lot of people don't get a chance to do. So if you already have an established regime, is what I'm going to call it right now. If there's already an established order of way of doing things, it is a challenge to do something different. It is a challenge. You can expect to receive pushback. Anytime we go, like, this is not how we used to do things. This is not what we do. And I could say that culturally, like if we're talking about, like, we came really because they wanted us to help our students critically think. So some of the things that the students were critically thinking about were pushbacks against the government. And we had to navigate that without getting arrested and getting in trouble. So I will say pushback, but also understand that things are already established and people don't like change. This is a humanistic thing. We like things to be the same way they are. And you're telling me I got to do it differently. You're telling me that I've been an educator for 20 years and you want to come in here and tell me, oh, how we're incorporating AI into the classroom or some other new things. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't do that 20 years ago. It's
Yeah.
acknowledge that it is scary and that it is new. But if we look historically at how education changes, how the world changes, there's going to be change. The jobs that we had 30 years ago are not going to be jobs we have 60 years from now. So we have to be willing to change it. We have to be willing to be flexible, but there's always pushback. There's always going to be a place of being uncomfortable where you're trying to make change. It's historically just a reality.
One thing I think of Dr. Sade is this. I think sometimes people feel like change is like a threat or like it's an attack
Yep.
against them. They've internalized it. They have made this like a personal thing, and then they become almost avoidant, and because they just don't want to ruffle any feathers, or they just don't want to have to do the work and put in the work and be gritty, and have to really sacrifice, and feel like they are being slighted,
Oh, yeah.
or feeling like it's a work that's going to unfortunately drain them, in return. So, what advice do you have for those that are maybe on the fence about promoting change or being a part of some new initiatives, that they might be like, it's a little sticky, or I feel like that's a little taxing on me. I don't know if I can sign up for this yet. So, what advice do you have for those teachers?
So it depends. So sometimes it really depends. I have some people that I mentor who are professors and they got tenure. They have they have credibility. So
Yeah,
they have the position to ruffle feathers. It's not
right.
going to affect their job. They still got job security. You got to be realistic with this. I can't, I can tell you to jump off the ledge, but are you willing to suffer the repercussions of doing that?
Mm,
So I'm like, so something like we talked about this off camera about someone who, there's been some challenges with Black women at institutions and bullying and suicide. And I told this particular person, I said, you got to be an advocate and you got to speak out against what's happening. And I said, you're in the position where you're ready to retire, where you can talk your talk. Who's going to check you, boo? Nobody's going to say,
yeah.
they can't do nothing to
It's
you. You're
very-
untouchable. So this is the perfect season for you to push back
So
and
that's
ruffle feathers.
that's some wisdom for the older ones among us.
Mhm.
Those, and I say older, like senior citizens or like 50 and older, that
You can push back.
what they've put in their time, they
You can
have a
talk your
rapport, they
talk.
have a reputation, and they're looking to see how can they utilize their energies. Well, let's advocate for those, that are in those spaces, in a way that kind of convinces everyone on board that it's a safe direction, or that it's a good move, a step in the right direction for institutions and organizations that are looking for, change, and they're considering equitable practices, but they're not quite sure. So I think that that is a word of wisdom, for those that are older in the BIPOC communities that can
Yes.
speak to that, and maybe even how they can, maybe scaffold and help other younger
And they
ones
can
like ourselves.
advocate.
Right.
Absolutely. Sometimes, we have to be honest. Like sometimes when you push back, there are going to be repercussions, and you have to decide if it's worth it for you. Are you willing to leave? Are you willing to be fired? And if the answer is no, I am an advocate for self-preservation. You got to preserve yourself and put the oxygen mask on you. Before we can do great work in the world, we got to be okay. We got to operate from overflow. So if you're not in that space, sometimes you got to bite your tongue. I don't know. Some people not going to like this. When I was a student teacher, I didn't have my own classroom at the time, and I could not stand my supervising teacher. Like it was a toxic environment, and I was not growing. I wasn't learning. He was, I don't know. I just turned him off, and he was not there to support me. And I had to, I got some advice from someone who had been in education for years, for decades. And she said, guess what? This is a temporary thing. At this point, you got to suck it up because it's not your classroom. But when it
Mhm.
is your classroom, you won't have to deal with this. And guess what? Just a couple of months later, I didn't have to deal with him ever again. And I had to make sure that I could get my credentials. I had to do what I had to do. So sometimes we got to do what we got to do to self-preserve ourselves. And issue and challenge is not worth advocating. And I know some people are going to be mad at like you copping out. If I'm going to do the work I was born to do, I got to still be alive to do it. So it's important that we take care of it. And sometimes some things you just cannot fix and change at that moment. And then also, this idea that I want to play around with, I think it's coming from my dissertation, this art of influential leadership. If there's some things you got to find, you have to be influential. If you want change to happen and you're going to be the person that pushes back, you have to be influential. It means that you have to get people to buy into the vision, the goals, and the ideas that you have. So if you're not influential, whatever you say, people are not going to listen to. And you have to get, I'm going to say, a multi-generational group of people to buy into your leadership. So the people who've been in the space for years and decades need to buy into what you are saying. And the people who are coming, the new leaders, the emerging leaders, also need to buy in so that you have a multi-generational front so you can get goals accomplished. But you have to be influential. And that's important.
I see that that is a part of your mission here of helping people with achieving income, influence, and impact. Now, when you're having self-preservation, and listen, it's easy to assume that only people of the BIPOC community would be in that category of, okay, well, I'm just going to back up and just not say anything because I need a job, or, I have a family, or, and so they're not really speaking out on some of the things that are going on. However, I think everyone has that trait of self-preservation. And that's why some people are like, well, why are people speaking out? They know this is happening. It's because no matter who they are, there are times where there is, I would say, self-preservation. So how can you still have influence and impact if you are also having self-preservation?
You got to decide what levels of influence and what spheres and locations you want to have influence in. So me being in an entrepreneurial space, I know us to redirect and rewrite our own history and our own legacy. And having economic support and resources and economic capital allows you to make different decisions. So I wanted to be able to say, how can we help some of the most disrespected populations in the world provide new equitable opportunities for them? And that was through economics and through entrepreneurship. And being able to write their own checks and create their own pathways virtually. That was one of the ways that I could advocate for women and women of color to do things differently. Like, hey, we got the internet, we got a phone. There's new things that we can do in this world that we have new opportunities that allow us to create more equitable futures for ourselves.
Right. In order for us to even have the opportunity, right, to be entrepreneurs or to obtain degrees from, predominantly white institutions, we've had those that were in our corner that did not look like us, right? And so, I do want to say that I love, your passion and your grit towards entrepreneurship, but I also want to say I'm thankful and hopeful for those that, are of maybe European descent, Hispanic descent, whatever, that are coming and joining links with us and saying, you know what, we are here to promote change and to continue to move forward, because I do think that we are better together, right? And I'm sure you believe that as well, but I say that we're better together because, it's with a collaborative effort, a cohesive effort of all of us that are at the table, that we're really able to get things done and move forward, to pursue and to be successful at various causes. So I want to thank you for sharing that. And I also want to say, I want to spin this now and talk a little bit about your grittiness, because I am so impressed with you and with you being featured on Hello Beautiful, Black Enterprise, The Rachel Ray Show. I would love for you to talk about some of these opportunities, and just how did you become so gritty, so resilient, so passionate, and such a doer?
Part of it is I had no other choice. We got no other choice, man. We have goals. I've always been ambitious. My family told me to work hard, and there's goals that we gotta accomplish, and it just requires discipline. getting into school, applying for scholarships, applying for opportunities. They just told me, my mentors told me, okay, you're smart, but these are the things you got to do. And I said, okay, I guess that's what I got to do to
Right.
accomplish my goals. So I took some of that energy and insight and I just repackaged it into entrepreneurship. And then continue. I will say this across the board for people across my life. One thing that's been constant has definitely been mentors and advocates.
Yes.
People who are saying, okay, you did this, now do this. You did this, now do this. Okay, how about this? Have you looked at it this way? You need a team of people who can give you good advice.
Yes.
Surround yourself with great people.
I love it. And I'm so impressed. And I think, your work with the entrepreneurship. Tell us about that. Like, how did you have enough grit to say, you know what, I am going to start this new venture. I don't know much about it, or I'm a baby in it, right? This is like my first time doing this. What was that like? What were your feelings like? Did you have anxiety, fears that you had to overcome? You spoke about mentors, but how also were you able to cultivate your own grit to go ahead and persist and be successful in these various opportunities?
So I will go back to, and this is something I talked about it, and I talk about Black women entrepreneurs in my dissertation. And one thing that was constant for them that even stood out to my committee was this the belief in faith, having faith, having a faith system, a belief system, and some in a higher power. Um, Entrepreneurship was a faith walk. I was happy being a teacher. I've contemplated, I've spoken even recently this past weekend to fellow educators. And I always say I would go back to the classroom, maybe in a different capacity. I might substitute. I don't know what I want to do with my life. Maybe I'll become an adjunct. Who knows, right? I'm open to it. I didn't dislike being in the classroom. It was a leap of faith that I took to do something different because I was supposed to be a leader and a teacher of people from around the world. And I couldn't allow the four walls to confine me, but I'm not opposed to it. So faith is a huge factor in a piece of this because I needed to believe in something that I could not see. I needed to believe that what I was doing and the direction I was going in was the right direction. I needed to have that grit and tenacity, but I had to believe in it before I saw it. And even now, as we want to go to the next level, faith is like what is grounding me to keep going. Cause I'd be like, I could quit. Like, I got enough degrees. Somebody will hire me to do something. Like, I gotta do this. This is entrepreneurship is ghetto. Like, I can do something else. But I understand that even with, tenacity, persistence, and grit, that whatever I do or whatever I decide to do, that's what's gonna be like. Faith is still that guiding light and guiding force for me.
Wow. And I'm thankful you did mention that, because, I would have to agree with you that faith is a key for much success. And I know personally, in my own experience, it's been a game changer. But I want to now go into more about you and, some of the events and things that you've been able to do. I know that you spoke with me about conferences and things that you're doing yourself. So can you chime in on that a little bit for us?
Yes, we have an upcoming conference June 6th, 7th, and 8th in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's for women entrepreneurs, experts, coaches, and professionals. And it's called the Girl Your Brand's a Big Deal Conference. We are super excited and pumped to invite people to Charlotte, North Carolina, and Queen City. This is a branding and marketing conference. So if you're trying to build your personal brand as an expert, coach, speaker, author, this is a great, or consultant, this is a great event for you. And you're trying to learn marketing and what's working now. What was working 4 years ago is not necessarily what's working today. So we want to make sure we're bringing you experts who've done the things that they're talking about so that you can be supported in growing a profitable business.
Wonderful. Well, I'm super excited about that. Now, you said it's in North Carolina?
Yes, Charlotte, North Carolina, Queen City.
Queen City. Okay, awesome. Now, how can we get in touch with you in case we wanted more information, whether it's about the conference or if somebody wanted to consult with you? How can they reach you?
You can connect with me on social media at Hey Dr. Shade. Hey Dr. Shade on social media.
All together?
Hey Dr. Shade. You can find me on all the social media platforms at Hey Dr. Shade. You can find me on social media. If you want to learn more about the conference, thebigdealconference.com, thebigdealconference.com. And
is this right? For the
yes, Hey
Dr.
Dr.
Okay.
Shade. Yep.
Okay.
Hey Dr.
I'll
Shade.
make sure to follow you
Dr.
myself.
Shade.
That's great.
Connect with me across social media. Let me know you found me here. And we would love to have you at the conference. And as a matter of fact, I'll do something special. We'll have a coupon code. I don't know for how much. We'll say we'll use the coupon code GRIT. Maybe it'll be GRIT. We'll use the coupon code GRIT. Let me say GRIT 24 because my team might be like, we can't have 4-word coupon codes. So GRIT 24. And we will make sure that you get a discount for the GRIT 24. So once this comes out, we want to make sure that you guys have a special coupon code. I will send that message to my team to make sure that it works.
Yes.
GRIT 24, so that we know that you came from here, so you can get a special discount on a general admission ticket or a VIP admission ticket.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sade. And again, I'm so proud of you and how you have developed, cool story, guys. I actually was a part of her questionnaire, part of her dissertation process, and didn't realize it until the other day. And that was years ago. But it's so funny how this is all full circle, and she has just knocked it out of the ballpark. And I'm inspired by you, Dr. Shade, and Dr. Sade. And I also want to definitely continue to be a part of your circle as you continue to embark upon nothing but greatness in your future. And I wish you the best at this conference. I'm going to definitely look into this myself. Those out there, educators, you're trying to figure out what the next step is in your career or what you can do on the side, or maybe you have a desire to start a business or something. Dr. Sade is here to help you. So check out this Big Deal Conference. Use the coupon code GRIT24. And this will be from June 6th through
7th and 8th. Yes.
6th, 7th, and 8th in North Carolina, Queens City. So with that said, guys, I already gave you Dr. Shade's social media. Reach out to her. Okay, don't be a stranger. And Dr. Sade, do you have any other last announcement, words of encouragement, other great happenings, whatever that you want to share with the audience today?
I just want to encourage you that whatever you are working on, you can do it. And if you're like, man, you're the first, you're talking about first generation. Like if you're the first person to ever do it, you're building up that yellow brick road. No one has ever done it before. Look for evidence. Look for evidence and look for people who've done it bigger, bolder, and better than you.
Yes.
This weekend, looking for evidence as I want to build $1 million, multi-million-dollar business. I was with Sheila Johnson, co-founder of BET. She's a billionaire. She's building hotels. Like, you got to find people that's your evidence that it's possible.
Wow.
Find evidence of what you want. Even if you can't see it in your current life, if she can do it, I can do it too. If this person can do it. I was with people this weekend that were like, women, Black women that look like me, that are young. And I'm like, this one that made 60 million in her business. This one made 20. This one was a former educator, a former principal. This person was this, and they look like me. And they're doing these beautiful and amazing and phenomenal things. And when they have more, they give back. They're philanthropic. They support women. They support children. They support community. They support families. So when we have more, we do good work. But you got to find the evidence of it so that you have the grit to keep on going before it manifests. Okay.
Excellent.
So we can create those equitable outcomes.
That's right. Well, thank you so much. Well said. And I'm so happy to hear that. Thanks for sharing your experience. We will be in touch. And so with that said, guys, thanks so much for joining us today on the Grit and Equity podcast with your host, Dr. India White. Again, I'm super honored to have you guys. I'm thankful every time you check in. I appreciate you for that. Just some announcements again, just to remind you to check out my website whenever you get a chance, www.india-white.com, to schedule me for an event if you want to check out my blogs, or if you're wanting to purchase a couple of books for, whether it's a PD, a workshop, a training, whatever it is that you're wanting to do, book studies and more. Also, I wanted to remind you to please, 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 when you get a chance, check out the Grit and Equity Talks podcast on X Factor EDU Network with Dr. Matthew Joseph and the Tribe. You can also check this out on Spotify. And again, for you guys in Wisconsin, I will see you soon. And in July, I will see you guys at the camp conference. And also, my social media is Facebook is Miss India White, LinkedIn is The India White, Twitter, Indie Speak and Teach, Instagram, Indie238, YouTube is India White 123. TikTok is Dr. India White. I know that's a lot, and I'm super excited about it. And also, don't forget the mini workshop. I know this is new, so thank you to those that have already gone through and you've ordered yours. You're checking it out. You're spreading the word. And thank you to Robert and the Tribe for that. And so with that said, guys, you guys have been phenomenal. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, stay gritty. Thank you, Dr. Sade, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Take care.